Title: The Keeper of Red Hollow. They say there's a place that finds you, not the other way around. A place tucked between forgotten roads and towns no one speaks of anymore. People who go there, they don't always come back. And the ones who do, they come back quiet. There's no map, no welcome sign. Just a red door. And once you pass through it, something begins to listen. It waits for your voice, for your name. That's how it chooses you. This is the story of the last person it chose. His name was James Weston. I'm James Weston. I've never been one to believe in ghost stories. I work in a small, dusty library and spend most days surrounded by history books and people whispering about overdue novels. But this story, it began with a letter. One that shouldn't have found me. It came from Aunt Mabel, my mother's estranged sister who had disappeared decades ago. The letter was yellowed, brittle, and postmarked from a place called Red Hollow, a village that wasn't even on Google Maps. "Dear James," it began, "if you're reading this, I'm already dead. Do not come to Red Hollow. Whatever you do, don't look for the house with the red door. It knows." Naturally, I did the opposite. I had to. My curiosity chewed at my insides, especially because no one in the family had heard from Aunt Mabel in 25 years. My mother never spoke of her except in muttered curses. So I took a week off work, packed my bags, and drove through winding country roads until GPS blinked out, and the forest swallowed the path whole. When I finally arrived in Red Hollow, it was barely a village. Just 7 houses, most of them crumbling, with fog rolling in like it had lived there for centuries. A woman in a rocking chair stared at me with clouded eyes. No one spoke, not even when I asked about Aunt Mabel. I walked up a gravel path lined with rotting leaves until I saw it. The house with the red door. I stood at the red door for a long while. It looked more like a warning than an invitation. The wood was splintered and something sticky, maybe dried paint, maybe not, stained the bottom. I took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened by itself. Inside stood a man who looked like he'd been part of the furniture. Wrinkled, dirty, heavy bags under his eyes. His name was Amos, the caretaker apparently. He didn't speak at first, just turned and walked down the hallway, so I followed. "This was your aunt's house," he finally said. "She told me you'd come. Even left you a message." He led me to a small study lit by a single bulb swinging from the ceiling. On the desk was an old cassette player, the kind with big clunky buttons. Amos hit play. Aunt Mabel's voice crackled through the static. "James, if you're here, I'm probably gone. This house, it keeps secrets. You'll hear things, whispering, but it's not rats. It's not rats. It watches. You must not let it speak your name out loud. If it does, you'll never leave." Amos stood in silence, eyes fixed on me. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out wrong. That night I stayed in Aunt Mabel's bedroom upstairs. The wallpaper was faded with water stains that looked like human shapes if you stared too long. The mirror was covered in a cloth. I didn't ask why. At 2:17 a.m., the scratching started. First beneath the bed, then the walls, then, worst of all, behind the mirror. I didn't look. I whispered, "It's just rats." But then a soft voice repeated my words, mimicking me from the wall. Just rats. It wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't human. The next morning, I confronted Amos in the kitchen. "There's something in the walls," I said. He didn't even blink. He just poured black coffee into a chipped mug and muttered, "It knows you're here now." I stared at him. "What is it?" He looked up. "The thing Mabel locked in the house. She called it the Keeper. It needs voices. It feeds on attention. And once it knows your name." He didn't finish. I didn't press him. Instead, I searched the study again, desperately hoping to find some rational explanation, blueprints, old house records, anything. What I found was a journal, wedged between floorboards beneath Aunt Mabel's desk. Its cover was torn, and the pages were curled with age and damp, but her handwriting was unmistakable. Entry 1. I thought Red Hollow was peaceful. I thought the silence meant safety, but now the house whispers when I'm alone. It said my name last night. Entry 4. The mirror in the hallway doesn't reflect right anymore. I covered it. Amos says it's the Keeper watching. Entry 9. I trapped it in the walls using the old names, the ones scratched into the attic door, but it's still hungry. It waits. Final entry. If James comes here, I'm sorry. Tell him not to speak. Don't say his name. Burn the journal. Burn the journal? I looked toward the fireplace. But before I could decide, something knocked 3 times from inside the wall beside me. Knock. Knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just expectant. I backed away slowly, clutching the journal, then froze when I heard my voice whispered again from the hallway. James. Only this time, it wasn't an echo. It was a call. The attic had always been locked. Amos never spoke of it, and I hadn't dared ask. But now, with Aunt May's journal in hand and my own name whispered through the walls, I had to go up. I found the key tucked inside her Bible behind Psalm 91. Fitting, I suppose. A prayer before the storm. As I climbed the attic stairs, every step moaned beneath my weight. Cobwebs brushed against my skin. The house felt alive, like it was watching. At the top, the attic door loomed. It was covered in names, all scratched into the wood by hand, some clear, some nearly worn away. Lena, Ruth, Elias, Sarah, Mabel, and now, near the bottom, fresh scratches, James. I touched the door, cold like metal in winter. I hesitated, but the journal had mentioned these names. According to Mabel, they were the ones the Keeper had known, the ones it had spoken out loud, the ones who had vanished. I unlocked the door. Inside, the attic was unnaturally cold. Dust floated in shafts of light from a narrow window. But it wasn't empty. In the center was a circle drawn in salt, and inside it a chair. Bound to the chair were the remnants of a person, now mostly bone wrapped in cloth. Around the salt circle were mirrors, facing inward. I realized then, Mabel had trapped the Keeper in the mirrors. But something had changed. One of the mirrors was cracked. I felt the shift in the air, like something exhaled beside me. Then behind me I heard Aunt Mabel's voice, but I knew it wasn't her. He said his name. I can keep him now. I turned. The reflection in the mirror smiled back, but it wasn't me. It had my face. But the eyes were all wrong. I stumbled back from the mirror. My reflection didn't follow. It just stood there, smiling, its eyes gleaming with something ancient, something cruel. I ran. Down the attic stairs, journal clutched in one hand, keys jangling in my pocket. Amos was gone. The house was dead silent, but the walls, they whispered my name now, over and over. James, James, James. Each time the voice grew more confident, more real. I burst through the front door into thick morning fog, but something was wrong. The road wasn't there. The village looked different, twisted, older, like it had decayed a century overnight. The houses slumped inward. Windows were black holes. I tried my phone. No signal. The car wouldn't start. Dead batteries. That's when I saw Amos again. Standing at the edge of the trees. You shouldn't have let it speak your name, he said. Then help me stop it, I shouted. He just shook his head. You can't kill the Keeper. You can only replace it. That's when it clicked. Mabel hadn't just trapped the Keeper. She became it. Locked away. Until the mirrors cracked. Until it could speak again. Until me. I remembered her journal's final line. If James comes here, I'm sorry. She hadn't written it with regret. She'd written it with warning. I turned back to the house. It stood still, waiting. Red door wide open. Inside, the mirrors had changed. They lined the walls now, each one filled with different versions of me, screaming, running, begging. Except one. One stood still, smiling. I stepped toward it. My reflection reached out. For a second I felt myself pulled forward, drawn like breath into a cold mouth. Then everything went black. A week later, a hiker found a house deep in the woods. It didn't appear on maps. The red door creaked open when touched. Inside, a cassette tape sat on the table. If you're listening, my name is James Weston. This house keeps secrets. Don't let it speak your name. The voice clicks off. From the attic, something knocks. Knock, knock, knock. And the mirror smiles.